Hi aviation lovers! My name is Rina, you're on the Just in Ginger channel, where we explore the skies, share aviation insights, and dive deep into the reality of cabin crew life. Today we're talking about the Singapore Airlines, one of the most famous and luxurious airlines in the world, which is famous for its service and the famous Singapore girl. But what it really is to work for them as a flight attendant. In this video, we're exploring everything you need to know, the requirements, challenges, benefits, and everything you need to know before you join these airlines. Even if you don't want to join these airlines, you might be interested in this video because I will uncover something that sometimes airlines want to hide. So if you're ready, fasten your seatbelt because we are flying right into it. As many of you know, I used to work as an Emirates flight attendant for 5 years, and many of my videos related to Middle East region and the airlines that operate there. But recently I received a lot of questions about other airlines, so I decided to make a series of videos where I uncover the truth about other airlines, the requirements, challenges, benefits. So you might check that playlist first if you're interested on other airlines, because today we're gonna talk specifically about Singapore Airlines, and we're gonna start with a brief history of it. Singapore Airlines began its journey in 1947 as part of Malayan Airways Limited, officially becoming Singapore Airlines in 1972. Since then, it has established itself as one of the most prestigious airlines in the world. With its hub at Changi Airport, Singapore Airlines and its low-cost carrier Scoot now fly to over 120 destinations worldwide, connecting people to the places and experiences they value most. Renowned for its innovative spirit, the airline introduced game-changing services like the world's longest non-stop flight and the ultra-luxurious suite class. The iconic Singapore girl embodies its commitment to excellence, warmth, and world-class service, ensuring every passenger experience is unforgettable. Dreaming of joining Singapore Airlines? Then here on the screen you can see the requirements to join the Singapore Airlines as a flight attendant. I would say that majority of the airlines has a similar requirements for their flight attendants, but of course Singapore Airlines has its specific requirements. They are similar, like a good health or a minimum age or the minimum reach requirement, but I heard sometimes that they hire only the girls from Singapore, which is not really true. Yes, they give preferences to the girls from Singapore, but they also hire other nations for the other bases. Mostly girls from Asian countries could apply for this position, and they sometimes search for the flight attendants from Malaysia or China or Korea or India, and they publish those requirements and qualification and the bases and who they're looking for on their official website. And there is a reason why they don't hire girls from Western countries, which I'm gonna mention later on in the challenges of this job. And if you're from the Western country, you might be even slightly shocked of how strict they are. So if you're just curious, stay with me. But first we will cover the benefits of being Singapore Airlines flight attendant. As I already said, it's one of the best airlines in the world, so they actually offer a lot of benefits, starting with a nice salary. Yes, it consists of the different parts, like a basic salary, flying hours, different allowances, but if you're talking about the salary of the new hire, approximately you'll be getting around $3,300 plus additional accommodation allowance of around $370 per month. Obviously, the travel perks, you will be getting discounts with the mother airlines, which is Singapore Airlines, and with other airlines worldwide. And because Singapore is such a big international airline, they actually have a lot of discounts with many airlines in the world, like Emirates or Qatar has, basically with every airlines in the world, even the smallest one that you never heard of before. As well, you will be getting annually the free ticket to any Singapore destination. Of course, there are going to be the other benefits like the health coverage, career opportunities to grow within the company in this role or move to other departments, the annual leave, maternity leave. But I want to mention specifically the world-class training of Singapore Airlines. Singapore Airlines has really nice training facility. It's quite similar to Emirates, and if you ever saw the videos of the Emirates crew training, you might check the Singapore Airline crew training, because they also have those simulators, so they put you into the environment to stimulate the learning process, to put you in the simulation of the life-threatening situation. So even to be a part of this training process is a huge experience, and that was one of the best things that I experienced with Emirates. So that's why I'm saying that the training itself, this world-class training of the Singapore Airlines, is like amazing opportunity just to be there, just to experience that. But again, it will help you with your career, at least within the Singapore Airlines. Or maybe if you will decide to work with other airlines later on. And as always, when we speak about the benefits of this airline and this position, we need to talk about the challenges of this role and this specific airline. But before we dive into the downside of this airline and this specific role, I want to mention that Singapore Airlines operates in an Asian culture where the work environment and expectation is really different from those in the West or even in the Middle East. Some practices that I will mention might be really strict or even shocking for those who are used to the work environment of the Western region, even the Middle East one. So you might be shocked, but at the same time, it is completely normal for those who grew up in the Asian region, and it's just a part of their culture and working environment in general. Let's say that downside might not be the downside for everyone, especially those familiar with the culture. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is the seniority in Singapore Airlines. Yes, those seniority bases actually exist on all the airlines. For example, there is a seniority of getting into the non-rep flights, like those ID travels, discounted travels. If there is only one space available on board the aircraft and there are two crew who want to get the seat, they will actually get it based on the seniority. Whoever had a higher seniority will get the seat, and the crew with a lower seniority will need to wait for another flight where there will be the seat available. When we're talking about Singapore Airlines, this seniority culture is way more strict than in other airlines, and it affects all the aspects of the work environment, like the work in general, and I think sometimes it even affects like your mental health. Yeah, so what I'm talking about, I think the first thing is to explain what the seniority is. Basically, seniority is your staff number, and you get the one when you join the airlines. The lower your staff number, the higher your seniority. So the longer you stay with a company, the better your seniority and more invincible with the company you are. The Singapore Airlines operate within really strict hierarchy system, and you can even say based on the color of the crew uniform how senior they rank are, not like how senior their staff number, but their role in this specific flight, either they're regular crew, supervisor, or in flight manager. So if you're new in the role of the flight attendant, you're the most junior flight attendant of the Singapore Airlines in your specific flight, you are expected to be extremely respectful towards other crew, especially the in-flight manager. But if you're like at the bottom of the seniority list, you need to show the respect to each and every crew on your flight. Obviously, as a human being, we need to respect each other's, but like when you're at the bottom of the seniority list, you need to treat the people above you with an extreme respect. I would even say that to give an example, you need to respect the more senior crew on your flight It's like when you respect your mother-in-law in an Asian culture. For example, you choose your meal option based on the seniority. So the most senior crew can decide what they're going to eat before more senior crew decide what they want to eat. So if there is only one option available, you're gonna get this one option. Also, more senior crew gonna choose the bank for the break. We have like a crew rest compartment on extremely long flights where crew legally have a break, and they're like the beds on board the aircraft in a specific area, so we call them the bank. So more senior crew choose their bank first, and of course with other airlines it could be similar, like to respect the seniority, and they have this right to choose the bank faster or to choose their meal option faster, but it's not like a regulation. But in the Singapore Airlines, if you jump and choose the bank or the food before more senior crew, you might get in trouble. And of course, I gave you just a couple of examples of like meal preference options or the bank selection, but also based on your seniority, you will be choosing your working position on board the aircraft, and sometimes the workload of the most junior crew is slightly higher than more senior crew. But as I told you before, it's normal for the Asian region. Those seniority systems, they exist in each and every company, and they might be shocking in some way for the people from the Western countries, but they are completely normal to the people who grew up in any of the Asian countries, so they are more used to it. And it's also one of the reasons why Singapore Airlines usually hire people, if not from Singapore, but from the neighboring countries, so they are comfortable with this seniority system. And the next one, my favorite, image and uniform standards. In Singapore Airlines, they are extremely strict. You might say that Emirates Airlines image and uniform standards are also quite strict, and you will be right. When I work as an Emirates flight attendant, I actually followed the huge manual where everything was written black and white, how you should look like on every phase of the flight, in the airport, on board the aircraft, during the meal service, during takeoff and landing, before boarding. Like everything was written there, and you need to follow them, and you don't have an option to not to put a red lipstick, for example, or not to put your makeup, which is allowed with other airlines, for example, in Europe or in US. But when we are talking about Singapore Airlines, they are above above and beyond in those rules. And when I say that, I actually mean that Singapore Airlines has one of the strictest grooming standards in the industry, and I will even find maybe a video how the image and uniform officer treats Singapore Airlines crew.
Girls, this is the time when I'm telling you whether you're cutting your hair or not. Congratulations, you get to keep your hair. You to cut your hair.
Cut my hair.
Because when you tie like this, you look like a young mother-in-law hiding in that bun then.
But if not, I'll just tell that, for example, you're not allowed to choose the hairstyle for you. And I don't mean the bun or the French roll, they actually choose the hairstyle for you. For example, for the small buns, they have a specific size of it, how it looks like, and they try it on you during the training. And if they don't like how your band look like, or they just don't like how you look with this specific hairstyle, they will force you to cut your hair. And there are many videos in YouTube where Singapore Airlines crew crying because they don't want to cut their hair, they want to keep the long hair, but the image and uniform officer told that they are not allowed to. If they want to work there as a flight attendant, they need to cut hair, unfortunately. For example, you can even tell who is the most senior crew based on their hairstyle. I'm not joking. The Singapore Airlines crew, they actually like to use the French roll hairstyle, and I think it's look awesome on them. It really complements well girls with Asian features, but you can tell who is the most senior crew. Guess how to do that? You can stop the video right now and write your opinion in the comment and then continue if you already did it. Actually, it's how high that French roll is. So the most senior crew gonna have the higher French roll, and the more junior crew will need to redo their hairstyle, so the French roll is lower than more senior crew. So yes, they are extremely strict on the image uniform standards, but at the same time they look amazing. Whenever I was like, after US flight, when you're staying on the border and you're exhausted, you work for the past 20 hours, and that's normal that you don't look your best anymore. But sometimes I was staying those lines to the customs, and we were staying together with a Singapore Airlines crew, and I was like, did you operate this flight or not? You look so fresh, you look so beautiful, your makeup, your hairstyle, everything is perfectly in place. While Emirates crew, we do still follow those standards, we still have this makeup, hairstyle, uniform, but you can see that we just operated on 20 hours flight. Singapore girls, no, you cannot, they are always perfect. But if you can stand such a strict image and uniform policy standards, maybe you should consider other airlines than Singapore Airlines. And if during the training you decide that you can't stand such strict policies and image and uniform, or in general you think that you are not a suitable person for such a strict seniority based management work environment, and you want to resign, you will meet the panel team. Yes, there is a resignation fee for the newbies, basically like a training bound. It actually exists in many other airlines worldwide. Companies just want to make sure that you work for the specific period of the time, so they invested in you and your training, and they want to get their money back. So if you decide to resign shortly after joining the company or during your training, there is actually going to be the fee that you need to pay back before you resign. So you need to keep it in mind and choose consciously, like decide if you want to work for Singapore Airlines before joining the company. That's why I'm mentioning all the benefits and challenges, so you don't need to pay the penalties if this job is not for you. Another challenge of this job is a slow promotion process, and if on other airlines you could be promoted to the in-flight manager, to the purser, the most senior cabin crew within a couple of years, with Singapore Airlines it's not gonna work. And I think it's also part of the culture of the Asian countries, the mentalities of those people. They used to work for the airline, for the company. Slow promotion process is also one of the downsides of the Singapore Airlines, and if with other airlines you might be promoted to the in-flight manager, purser, the most senior crew within a couple of years, it's not gonna work with Singapore Airlines. And I think it's also the part of the mentality of people who grew up in the Asian region, that they really respect the company they work for, and most of the time they do work for the specific company, specific airlines until the rest of their career. It's not like in America or Europe where people decide that other airline or company offer better benefits, so they need to resign and move there. Usually when people start to work for Singapore Airlines, they work for a while, so your upgrade based on your seniority, based on your staff number, and you need to wait for the position in business, first class, supervisor position to be offered to you. And it will be offered based on the seniority, so it might take a while to be promoted. And the last challenge that I want to talk about today is a strict and sometimes toxic environment. I'm gonna name it toxic environment because actually many people who used to work as a Singapore Airlines flight attendants, or I had a colleagues who used to work for that airlines and then they moved to Emirates, and they are my source. And some of my friends who used to work there as well, they are my source of information, and they called the environment toxic. It's also because of that strict seniority system. So yes, on other airlines we also have the seniority system. We also need to respect the more senior crew. They are a chain of commands and we need to listen to them, but we have kind of the friendly environment, and yes, they're senior on the position, on the role, but when we are on layovers, we're equal. It's not the same within the Singapore Airlines. They actually have the seniority and this respect even out of the aircraft, out of the role. And sometimes you can express yourself as a person when you work there. You don't have such a friendly atmosphere. I don't know how to say it correctly, but like if you used to work for that company, if you used to work for any airlines in Asia, please help me to describe what it's really like. I don't want to call it toxic or extremely strict or just don't work for these airlines because you're not gonna have fun there, but it might be different for the atmosphere, like chill atmosphere in other airlines. Like sometimes you hear about those crazy layovers, which might not, like with the crazy layovers with the crew, which might not be the same in Singapore Airlines because of that like strict seniority. It's just culture thing. I called it as a toxic environment, but I think it's also because of my cultural background is slightly different. And yeah, it was just what people who used to work for that airlines told me. And when I was asking them the reason, so why did you leave Singapore Airlines? They have such an amazing layovers. They do have better hotels. For example, in London, they do have a hotel in almost the city center, when Emirates has hotel like 50 kilometers away from London, yep, next to the airport. So they do have benefits which could be better, even layovers wise, travel wise, than other airlines, but they still resign and join other multinational famous luxurious airlines like Emirates or Qatar. But they just saying it was because of the environment there. It's more chill and free, and you know that Emirates and Qatar is not, it's not like the most easygoing airlines in the world. It's not like Ryanair or Wizz Air. They also quite strict sometimes. But still, if I will compare it to Singapore Airlines, it's not that strict. I hope I explained what I mean. So what's my final verdict? Is it still worth to become a Singapore Airline flight attendant? The Singapore Airline is one of the best airlines in the world, so it offers amazing opportunities for the personal growth, for the growth within the company, within the role. They offer nice salary, travel opportunities, of course, discounts, and you can travel not only on your personal travel with discounted ticket, but also they have many destinations worldwide and they have a nice layovers in a good hotels. So yes, there are perks of working for such big international, well-known, respectable airline. But you need to keep in mind all the challenges that come along with it, like the seniority system, the environment in the company, the culture difference if you're coming from another regions. You need to search all this information beforehand so you won't be shocked, and if you decide midway that you don't want to be a flight attendant for this airline anymore and you're still in this probation period during the training, you won't be required to pay this fee, the penalty for resigning too early, if you search in advance and you decided beforehand, before you join this airline. That's why I'm making those videos, so you can compare challenges, benefits, you will know all the requirements, and yeah, I think that was the reason why I made this channel at the first place and why I do this series of videos. As always, write your opinion in the comment, it means a lot for me. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel because it gives me motivation to do more of such videos. And Emily, I see you soon. Bye!